What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. It is a weird combination to have a grapefruit seltzer?
It's grapefruit Spindrift. Not a sponsor, but delicious product.
My wife loves those.
I'm a big fan because it's just the right amount of grapefruit.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that the thing that is appealing? I think she likes the lime and the lemon ones better.
We all know how much I watch my figure and sugar intake, and only 3 grams of sugar. Now, I won't drink soda beverages because I like my calories from cake.
Well, I do know what you mean, dude. What that's if you're trying to like be healthy, that is always the first thing. I mean, this is like so fucking stupid that I'm drinking this shit. Like, and it's just literally because Lauren stocks the fridge for you guys, and then it's just like when I'm here, I'm like, well, why wouldn't I do that? And now I'm having like 4 of these a week for no reason, and just have another cup of coffee. I'm too lazy to walk up a flight of stairs. So instead, I'll just have fucking. Did you see? Sorry, this is all off topic. We'll get into stuff in a second. Did you see? There was someone who did the simplest, just like examination of a large Dunkin' Donuts
with just the
thing
amount
with
of
just
sugar,
the amount of
crazy.
sugar. It is fucking wild, dude. It's like we are. Just as a nation, just committing suicide in the slowest, fattest way possible. But it's like, first of all, the Dunkin' Donuts thing is it's gigantic. Like the cup is the size of like the old McDonald's supersize cups. And the grams, it was like, it's like 78 grams of sugar or something like that. And then he just holds it up and you're like, just imagine if in the morning, you were just like, I'm going to go, I'm going to go eat this bowl full of sugar. Anyway, sugar's not good for you, it turns out, guys. That's how we started today's show. Anyway, what's up, guys? I'm Dave Smith. He's Robbie the Fire Bernstein. And we are your favorite truth-telling comedians who will be on the road together throughout 2025. Go on over to comicdavesmith.com and you can see when we're coming to a city near you. Go grab tickets. We put on a fun live show. You think these podcasts are fun? You got to come out. What's up? How are you, sir?
I was up late last night. I booked travel through March. We got some exciting gigs.
We do. Yeah.
Key West is a blast. And then I was also editing. Check out my show tomorrow, Wednesday. Run your mouths.
Oh, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Key West. Of course, this is a makeup gig for
Dustin.
me. Yeah, I wasn't able to go last year. I was unfortunately sick. The only weekend I believe I've ever canceled in my life. And I've been sick before. I was real sick at Skankfest this last year, but I've been sick, but it's always been like, you could power through and like do it. This was the only one where I was like,
I got COVID coming out of my eyeballs, and you keep that to yourself.
Oh, that's what I did at Skankfest. But like, could you...
No one cares anymore.
Listen, first of all, no one cares anymore. Second of all, it's Skankfest. They didn't care in March of 2020. You know what I mean? Like, none of these people care. And then it was like, I don't know. They're clearly... Skankfest, I remember I was trying to explain this to Dr. Drew's wife. I think this was 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, if you could put yourself in that place in COVID time, right? So it's way past the point of me and you being well over this. But, it's still a thing. And she had a fair argument. So he had like a reunion for one of his shows. What was his show? Teen Mom or something like that. Whatever version of that show that he was the host of, they had like a big reunion. Like, where are they now? Spoiler alert, not successful. But spoiler alert, don't have kids when you're a teenager. Turns out it's not the best path. But so anyway, so he was doing that. And then he was like, I really want to go to Skankfest. It was like 2 weeks before that. And she was like, look, if he gets COVID at Skankfest, then we lose this like huge money gig. And it's like, it was a time where it's like, if he tests positive, then they're just not going to do the reunion. And, she didn't tell me the number, but I imagine it's a nice chunk of change. So I was like, okay, listen, I get your point. But I was like, let me try to make this argument. And I was like, and I'm talking to Dr. Drew and his wife, and I was like, he's a doctor, so back me up on whether this is medically sound. These are the filthiest people in the United States of America. They have all clearly gotten COVID already. They're like, this is actually the safest place to be. These people live in germs. They're the safest. And I remember Dr. Drew goes, he was like, the science checks out.
Yeah, the
on that.
Ethiopian mud babies that come to Skankfest each year.
So the long of the short is Dr. Drew did not come to Skankfest that year. My argument was not convincing, but he did come the following year. So something got in there a little bit. Anyway, lots to talk about today. If you have any questions, drop them in the live chat and we will try to address as many of them as we have time for. By the way, if you want to be a part of the live chat, you have to go sign up at partoftheproblem.com. That's how you can support the show. Go to partoftheproblem.com, become a supporting listener of the show, viewer, supporting person. Give us money. Is what I'm trying to say, okay? And that it does really make a big difference. It helps us out very much. And you get a whole bunch of perks depending on what level you sign up at. But you get to watch the shows live, ad-free, uncensored. Plus, you get that bonus episode every week. Every week, we do 4 episodes of this show. And if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble or wherever, you may not know that. But it's not a 3-day-a-week show. It's a 4-day-a-week show. But you have to sign up in order to get that 4th episode. Okay. So I guess the big news of the day, which is, I find it totally fascinating, is this stuff about Facebook, or should I say about Meta, which is what Meta is the parent company of Facebook. And that's, I guess it's Facebook and Instagram. And that metaverse thing never seemed
Oculus,
to take off.
yeah.
And what is Oculus? I don't think
It's the 3D things.
I have it.
Yeah.
I have it in the other room. I actually really like that. I got into the boxing game for a while. It's a good hack to like get cardio in, but like you just think you're playing a game and fighting someone. But man, do you look ridiculous.
Oh, if someone's watching you. Dude, that boxing game is a lot of fun.
Oh, so much fun. So much fun. They do a really good job of making it like however they figured it out. It is cool that like they can measure like how much you're putting into it. And like, if you want to knock someone out, you got to really land a clean shot. The thing I liked about that game was also that, which is very realistic about it, was that it wouldn't, like if you just swing wildly, but with everything you have in it, you're not going to knock guys out. But if you you could just put it like perfect placement and you can drop people and you're like, oh, that's really what it's like. You know what I mean? Like it's more about like hitting someone right on the button than it is about just like swinging wildly.
You see, you have a lot more technique than I do.
You just swing wildly?
I was not knocking people out in that game. I was throwing power punches, but I guess I don't...
You got the thing about the game, I think, is you got to like... I'm telling you, if you go back and play it again, instead of focusing on just throwing bombs, focus on perfectly placing it on the chin, and you're gonna get more knockdowns.
All right.
I'm gonna coach you. I'm gonna make a successful fighter out of you yet. Okay, so... I guess just prefacing all of this, which I don't know why I kind of almost feel the need to like disclose this up front, but I do also find this whole topic of like internet censorship it's particularly, I guess, interesting to us because we're in this world. And so it's a topic about the industry that we're in, or it's super relevant to that. And again, with Facebook, we had our private group in the part of the problem inner circle on Facebook, which got shut down in 2020 over the COVID stuff, and I'm still quite resentful about that. So it's like there's just kind of like putting my biases on the table at the beginning, like I am biased. I do have my own angle on this, and that's a big part of it. And then separate from that, as we've said many times, I do just think that internet censorship is in many ways the most important issue, because everything kind of follows from that. Like, okay, the corporate press has been destroyed. Okay, trust in institutions has evaporated. Now we have, these alternative voices. But if they censor the internet, we're not going to have these voices, and then we're right back in the same situation. So I'm as I know you are too, very strongly on the side of a free internet and against censorship. So that's, I guess, just in the backdrop. This is also something that's been building, I guess, for a while. Zuckerberg has kind of come around. I'm curious, what do you think about and we can play we'll get into the clip of him, and then there's a clip of another guy from Meta. But what do you think about this this transformation that we've seen over the last few years of Mark Zuckerberg?
I think not all of these characters are inherently evil. Now, they might not be noble people. They might not want to stand up for the greater good. But some of these people just want to run businesses. And they discover along the way that they can't just run businesses because the mob will call them into their office and tell them, hey, we don't care that you're just a content platform and that you want to drive as much business here by making it open and interesting. What we need you to do, and here's your marching orders. And so I don't think, I think for some of these people, like I think Google, they might actually have tie-ins with the CIA. I think that or CNN, I don't think they just want to run an honest news network.
Right.
I think there are businesses out there that are highly tied into government initiatives or are specifically hijacking the government so that they don't have to compete in the market. And then I think there's some people that just want to run businesses. I don't know that that's for sure but there's some, I think the tech people got pulled in and were told that basically you got to pick a team and you got to start paying somebody because if not, you're going to be in trouble. I think that very specifically happened with Zuckerberg, where they'll start screaming about safety, this, that, the next thing, they'll jam you up. Even Microsoft had that. All of a sudden, antitrust, and instead of building, your business, you're meeting with your lawyers trying to fight the government.
Well, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's a little bit of a weird situation because how much can you blame, certain businessmen who are like, look, this is the world I'm given, and so I got to play this game.
But interestingly enough, he's hiring Dana White, and Dana White made the gamble during the last administration, business as usual. And a lot of people won really big by saying business as usual. Kill Tony won real big. I mean, how many shows shut down and Kill Tony's like, we're still going.
Yeah.
And it's, so people placed that bet the last time around of going, I'm not listening to this administration, as they went full, hey, you're killing grandma unless you're playing into this COVID thing. I think Zuckerberg was playing on Team Democrat up until we've seen this shift of just, dude, the ESG score thing is gone. The woke thing is gone. The green energy thing is gone. I think they tried to push more socialism than the market would actually tolerate, and they just lost. And so people like, Zuckerpants was betting on we're going to be full-scale socialism, and I got to work within the machine. And that entire thing has seemingly died.
Yeah, look, man. I get your point. I think that's right. And I also think there's also just like a human element of like Elon Musk kind of just became the cool kid in that space. And I do think Zuckerberg is a guy who, listen. Like we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, but you know how sometimes like if you'll see like a male feminist or like a guy, a dude who's super progressive, maybe like a picture, like whatever you want to picture, like a 25-year-old guy who has he him pronouns in his Twitter bio and is like a super progressive
and
guy.
An egg in his asshole.
Yes, well, but like you could be watching him. And sometimes you'll be like, I just think the difference between us is like our level of testosterone. I'm not sure this has anything to do with actually political arguments or anything like that. I don't think I'm going to change your mind because you were like, man, that was a really compelling point that you made. It's like, you just need testosterone replacement. And I don't know why you need it so young, but something's going on. I don't know what your diet is or what. But like, Zuckerberg is into MMA. Okay. He's into MMA. Now, I don't know. He's an odd person. I know there's all those jokes about how he's like really a robot or something like that, but he's a weird guy. But I do think that he's at least, if you're like doing jujitsu and you're a fan of the UFC, you're at least enough of a dude that there's just something about like, oh, you're the free speech guy and you're getting a lot of love for that. That's just cool. That's cooler than being I'm the one who's in, like I'm doing content moderation. How gay does that sound? Even just the words content moderation. Doesn't it just sound like, what is it? Is this for a kindergartner or an adult man? You're moderating other people's content. Anyway, my point is that there's just this kind of cool factor that I think plays a part in this as well. I'm not trying to get too into like psychoanalyzing people. I try not to do that. But okay, so on one hand, this is kind of how I feel.
I'm going to put on a necklace and have curly hair.
Yeah, something like that. Well, so on one hand, I do feel that like I'm somewhat sympathetic to people who are, you know, in the world of big business, and they're like, look, I got to do what I got to do to be successful. And I can't have the federal government as an enemy. So I don't know what to tell you. They got all the guns and they're telling me I have to do this. So I'm going to do this and be real successful over here. I'm somewhat sympathetic to that. You know, it's kind of like if you're playing a game of basketball and you're just like, okay, we're playing basketball here. And, you know, we're on a team and we're like, okay, let's do a pick and roll and then blah, 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 whatever, isolation on the left side. And then the guy on the other team like punches you in the face and the ref doesn't call a foul. The ref goes, nope, that was clean. Like at a certain point, you're like, oh, well then, like if we come back to the huddle and we're like, hey, let's run the pick and roll again, like we're the retards, right? Like at a certain point, you got to go, oh, this is a different game than we think it should be. You know, the game is now that you can punch in the face. So now forget thinking about the pick and roll so much, like block your face and then punch back at this guy because that's the game. We're fighting now. We're not playing basketball. It's like the government changes things when it gets into the market. And I understand that people have to do what they have to do to survive. The other thing, though, is that it does, with the Mark Zuckerberg thing, it feels a little bit like, I don't know, maybe like if you were a Jew in Nazi Germany and then like, you know, someone downstairs is like, there's Jews in the attic. There's Jews up there. Go get them. They're up there. And then like the Nazi regime falls and then they're like, that was crazy how they were rounding up Jews and everything, right? And you're just like, yeah, bro, we might have to have a conversation before we're just cool. Because, like, that is really fucked up what you did, man. And so I don't know. I guess both of those feelings are in my mind. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, as somebody who's benefited from therapy in the past, and as somebody who knows a lot of people who have benefited from therapy, I always encourage it. I think all of us could use a little bit of therapy because we all have blind spots, and it can help to become a little bit more aware of those. Maybe you're on the fence about getting started. If that's you, you got to check out BetterHelp. It's the easiest way to do it. It's designed to be convenient and to fit your lifestyle. It's entirely online. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room, seeing people coming out as you're going in. None of that. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. They match you with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So if you're debating starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Go to betterhelp.com/problem and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/problem for 10% off your first month. All right, let's get back into the show. I don't know.
Colin Quinn just put out a new hour, and he had a great joke in there about how everyone yells about like the horrors of you're being a hypocrite. It's like, yeah, it's not illegal. I'm being a hypocrite.
That's great.
I don't know that like that was basically the framing of the joke.
Yeah.
It's something along those lines. So it's like, yeah, the guy stinks. COVID was terrible. He removed freedoms. I still can't advertise on Facebook to this day. Our platform was removed because of things that were that were in a private group. That's insane. Yeah. Then also the content moderation team turned out to be the Peter Daszak guy, who is the person who actually paid was over there and literally bought the virus from China. Yeah. The whole thing was absolute nonsense, and he partook in the entire thing to try and remove freedom from the internet and to create a track record of people like us potentially being domestic terrorists. Look, these people's ideas are so dangerous, they had to be removed from the platform.
Dude, and it was so, I mean, I can't like overstate it. It was so Orwellian, the entire process. I mean, so we've got this group. We had this group at the time called the Part of the Problem Inner Circle. It's a private Facebook group. It's just a group for our listeners to talk with each other and talk with us. And it was great. I really loved having that group. And so 2020 comes, right? In March, the country's in lockdowns. It is the craziest freaking thing ever. Like, you can't believe it. I mean, I remember, like, you know, it was a surreal time. I remember being in New York City at my mother's place. I'll literally never forget this as long as I live. But it was like a few days after lockdowns were implemented, and we were at my in-laws' house with our daughter. Our son wasn't born yet, but we were there with our baby daughter. She's like a little over 1. And me and my wife drove in to New York City, and we drove through Times Square just to go see like what the hell empty Times Square looks like. And I mean, it was like out of what was the Will Smith movie, I Am Legend. It was like that, like seeing Times Square with not a soul, and like there were like a couple cops randomly, but no one's there. So bizarre. And then I remember we go up to my mother's house, and we're walking down the street. We like parked the car and we're walking down the street in Manhattan, and just hearing birds chirp in Manhattan was just so freaking bizarre, dude. There's no one on the streets. The avenues, I mean, you look down Broadway, it's empty. So this is going on in the world, like this crazy time. And then Facebook is doing this shit where, if you remember, Rob, they made it that I had to, or you, one of the moderators from the group, had to manually post every single post. Like we had to approve it before it would be put in the group. So weirdly, like kind of trying to get you on the hook, like you approved this post. And like you said, they're shutting down. While this is all happening, we're like not allowed to talk about it, to question it. So like, and then of course, as you rightly pointed out, it turned out to be right about all of this stuff. And it was all completely unnecessary and based on pseudoscience plus intense corruption. And so, yeah, it is hard to just forget about all of that. And I will say that with all of this stuff, by the way, on top of that, then at the end of 2020, he straight up interfered in the U.S. presidential election. And like at the government's behest, by his own admission. I mean, pretty much by his own admission. Natalie, see if you could pull up. You could probably find it on YouTube. If you could find actually, because that maybe is the best clip. Yeah, it was. If you just put Zuckerberg, Rogan, Hunter Biden, so it should probably come up.
The point I'm making is that, yeah, he stinks. He always stunk, and he's a weak dude. But look at how much we've cleansed out some of the horrors of government, that now this weak beta bitch of a guy who was totally afraid of the thing and was going to ruin his product to go, oh, please, government, just don't, I'll do whatever you want.
I'm trying to take the win. I'm struggling with this one though. I guess to me, it feels a little bit, and when we play his video, I think this will become more clear. It just feels to me a little bit like, like if you were, let's say like you had a buddy and you found out that like his wife was having an affair or something like that, right? It's like his wife had totally betrayed him, was having an affair, and you talked to your buddy and you were like, Jesus, man, sorry you're going through that. And he goes, well, that it's over and we're working it out. And you're like, okay. So like she must like really apologize to you or something like that. And you're like, no, she never really apologized. She's just, but she said she's not doing that anymore. And you're like, okay, but like she acknowledged like how much that hurt you, how fucked up it was, how she was lying to you for all these years. She's like, no, she just kind of said going forward, with this now we're in a new time where I think we can go forward without cheating. And you know what I'm saying? Like, then you kind of be like, look, dude, you could get back together with her. You could leave her. I'm not telling you what the right move is, but like, if you're getting back together with her, that has to come with a fucking apology. That has to come with some acknowledgement of like what you did to your fellow Americans. I mean, look, all these motherfuckers, dude. And I get it. I get what happened. I'm very well aware of it. I've talked about it for many years. I know what happened. Donald Trump used social media to win the White House in 2016. That was not the plan. Hillary Clinton was supposed to win, okay? And then he used this new technology. He tweeted his way to the White House. And so then the fucking government decided, we got to crack down on that. We got to crack down on all this shit. And they, essentially mafia tacticked the big tech companies into doing that. And by the way, in plain sight, like in front of everyone, they hauled them in front of Congress and threatened the shit out of them on national television, And so, okay, I get it. I get that you were just, but at the same time, it's like all these guys who started these companies, if you listen to like Zuckerberg or like Jack Dorsey or all these like big tech guys, they always started with these lofty ambitions and like, we're going to connect the world and we're going to change the future and we're going to give regular people a voice and we're going to allow people to communicate with each other. And then it's like, yeah, but like when it mattered the most, look what you did to your fellow Americans. You know, like you shut them down when they needed their voice the most. And like, dude, and this is part of like why I disclosed that at the beginning and why it's kind of personal to me in a way. But look, I can't tell you, I got a lot. I'm sure you get comments about this too, but I got a lot, man. I still, almost every show I do, almost every time I'm like in front of a group of fans, I get people who tell me that like, dude, you kept me sane through COVID. Like the podcast I did with Malice, our show, people are always like, dude, it was the craziest time. You know, I couldn't have a funeral for my dad. I lost my job. I went through all this shit. But listening to this show, man, really. And like that Facebook group, much more so than it was for me, for a lot of people, it was that thing. And like, even just like taking that away from people, it's like, man, there's something so fucked up about removing people's voice from them, you know? Like I'm not allowed to think. I'm not allowed to communicate with other people, like for the crime of being right about important stuff. Anyway, yeah, let's go to the Rogan clip, because this was such a one of literally the most fascinating moments in the history of the Joe Rogan experience, and I've been on there a lot, so it's really saying something. Here it is.
You guys handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial. Like there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post.
Yeah, we had that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have, if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But I mean, basically...
Okay, so let's stop it there. Because I mean, look, just to be clear, this is such a... Like, he says it in a very nonchalant way that you could almost like hear that and not realize what a bombshell of a moment that was. But this was the first time that it was confirmed that, the FBI straight up interfered in the 2020 election. So, you know, like for whatever problem, this is part of the thing where like, you know, because people, it's always like, you know, you choose what you're outraged by. It's like the freaking arguments I'm having with Noam on Twitter about, well, you're not condemning anti-Semitism enough or whatever. But, you know, people would, it's very easy for people to point out that, like, you know, Fox News had to have that gigantic settlement with the Dominion voting machine company, and that Trump and his lawyers made claims about the 2020 election that they really couldn't even begin to prove. But like, then you just have this. It straight up, Joe Rogan asks Zuckerberg about the Hunter Biden story, and he goes, well, here's what happened. The FBI came and told us that a big Russian dump was coming. And so now he doesn't exactly say that the FBI said when the Hunter Biden laptop came out, they said, yeah, that's the Russian dump we were talking about. However, if you're Mark Zuckerberg and the FBI comes to you and says, hey, there's this big Russian dump that's coming, and then the Hunter Biden story comes out, and then 51 intelligence officers all sign their name to a letter saying this was Russian misinformation, well, what are you left to conclude? Other than, oh yeah, that's what they were talking about. And so you could say, okay, it's not exactly the same thing as if the FBI had come after the story and said, hey, this is Russian disinformation, but it's a distinction without a difference. Kind of like whether you ban a story or just make it so that nobody can see the story. And what a ridiculous, listen, man, that is just such bullshit. This whole what was it they used to say, like freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach or something like that. So it's like, oh, so what, you won't kick me off the platform, but you'll make it so that nobody can see what I'm saying there? Yeah, that's the same thing as kicking someone off a platform. And I love when Rogan asked him, by what percentage? He goes, oh, it was meaningful. Oh, yeah, no, it was pretty meaningful, wasn't it? But so what does that mean, it was meaningful? That means there was a bombshell October surprise that implicated a presidential candidate. Look, make what you will of the story, but the son of the president was getting fucking paid off by foreign governments and foreign companies that were in bed with foreign governments. That's a scandal, and that's news. And you by your own admission here, like interfered in the domestic politics of a presidential election. I don't know. That's a big fucking deal. That's amazing that that moment on Rogan's show didn't trigger more than just people like me and you talking about it on a podcast. But anyway, so that's the background of all of this. Cut to new Zuckerberg 2.0, who is singing a different tune. So let's go to Mark Zuckerberg's statement from today.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression.
You know what this is? Do you remember when Domino's did that campaign and the CEO came out and said, hey,
we know our pizza sucks?
I know our pizza sucks. That's what this is.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's a great comparison. Or they were like, okay, listen, we have built up a reputation for just having garbage pizza. So maybe we're going to make it not garbage. By the way, I don't think it got any better. But I don't know. I don't really actually remember eating Domino's after that. But that's a very good comparison. Yeah, that is essentially what we're looking at. I guess it's like Can
I break his nose back in place?
I would look. I would
got an extra Jew hook. It's just amongst all the things about him that annoy me.
Well, I would feel like not only comfortable, but I'd be enthusiastic if he came out and said something like, which I understand. Look, I get that I just rant and tell the truth, and that's not everybody can be that way. And when you're in charge of a multi-billion-dollar company, maybe that's not possible. But if he had come out and just been like, I started this company to give people a voice, like that. It's like, I know that's just like a slogan, but this is a fucking really, it's a powerful thing to say. It's like very profound in a lot of ways to give somebody a voice. And he goes, and then I totally betrayed that vision. And I did it because, I was shaken down and I was worried about what would happen and all this. But you know what? I'm never going to do that again. We're a free speech platform. I'd just be like, 3 cheers for the robot. He got it right and he's on our side. Fine. But there isn't that element to it. It's just like, I did this so people could have a voice and yada, yada, yada. Some things happened and I'm going to give you a voice again. And I don't know. It just makes me a little suspicious.
Yeah, you need name names.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, the Twitter files. Name names.
Exactly, dude. That's what we should be. Like a commitment like that would be something amazing. If he was like, listen, we're going to tell you all that. How I said the FBI came and spoke to me about this? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what FBI agents came and exactly what was said and all this shit. Yes, that would be fascinating. Let's really open up Facebook's books and see how much government intervention there was in this. We learned a lot of interesting stuff from Elon Musk doing that. That would be something that actually is a demonstration. You know what I mean? That you're really, have had a change of heart or something. Anyway, let's keep playing.
And I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. Mm-hmm. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people.
All right, so let's pause it
We've
again.
reached a-
I mean, this is
Again,
horseshit.
it's just so, like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's dishonest bullshit. It's like, listen, dude, first of all, it's 100% political. That's all any of this is. Let's not fucking pretend for a second that there's any real concern about Russian interference in our elections. It's all nonsense. It's like complete bullshit. There's still, to this day, is zero evidence that the DNC or the Podesta emails were hacked by Russia. Was just a nonsense fucking talking point to cover from the embarrassing shit that was in those emails. And so that they could make the story like, oh, Russian interference in the American elections. And so you really better not even pay attention to what's on those emails because, you know, that's just basically doing Vladimir Putin's bidding. And what was on those emails? Well, it was that the DNC cheated Bernie Sanders out of the 2016 primary. They were supposed to be a neutral body and they were straight up working for Hillary Clinton, including having Donna Brazile feed Hillary Clinton the questions that were to be asked at a town hall in advance. We have that straight up. We have the email of Donna Brazile sending her the fucking questions, and then 2 weeks later, those questions being asked at the town hall. There's also a whole bunch of language that I guess is code for pedophilia stuff, which whatever, nobody's allowed to look into. And obviously you're a kook if you ever bring that up, even though multiple pedophile rings have been busted since then that implicate a lot of the same people who are on those emails. And you know, a whole bunch of other shit like that. That's what they didn't want you to say. Anyway, so it's all political. But don't give me this shit about like, oh, the problem was just that there's like terrorism and child trafficking, and that's why we had to remove your fucking Facebook group about how fucking ventilators were killing people, right? That's why we had to censor the fucking Great Barrington Declaration, because we're worried about terrorism. Like, give me a fucking break, dude. So it's like, I don't know. I know it's a win. It's good. I hope they censor less going forward. But this is just such bullshit. And I don't know. It pisses me off. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Prolon. Forget everything you know about fasting. Prolon by L Nutra is the only patented fasting mimicking diet that combines the benefits of prolonged fasting with a science-backed nutrition plan so you can hit your health and weight loss goals without actually having to give up all the food. I'm sure you guys have heard about all these new fasting diets where you fast for long periods of time. It's very good for the body. But if you're anything like me, you're just not going to do that. I'm not going to give up eating. But now you don't have to. Prolon is a revolutionary plant-based nutrition program that nourishes the body while making cells believe they're fasting. Researched and developed for decades at the University of Southern California's Longevity Institute and backed by leading U.S. medical centers, Prolon helps promote healthy blood sugar, supports cardiovascular health, and reduces abdominal fat. But Prolon isn't a diet. Prolon is science based on Nobel Prize-winning discoveries in medicine. And all of this starts with Prolon's 5-day program. Snacks, soups, and beverages, all designed to keep your body in a fasting state. It's unlike anything you've ever experienced. Go check it out for yourself right now. Prolon is offering Part of the Problem listeners 15% off their 5-day nutrition program. Just go to prolonlife.com/POTP. That's PROLONLIFE.com/POTP for this special offer of 15% off. prolonlife.com/POTP. All right, let's get back into the show.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. That's what I have to say, Davey Smith.
You always do bring it back to basics. All right, let's keep playing.
Point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016,
it's also just hilarious how much of a bitch he is, because he's like, since the media landscape has changed in the US and we can get away with it, we'll do it here. But in Europe, where I still have to contend with the government that doesn't want you to have freedom, you guys are on your own because I have no balls.
Right. Right. And but also it's just like in my example of like your buddy's wife is cheating on him. And then it's like, you know, she's like, well, you know, I recognize that the landscape has changed and, you know, being faithful to your spouse is now more important. It's like, no, you got caught. That's what happened. What are you talking? You mean you lost? So you lost. So now I'm for freedom of speech again. Like what? The landscape change. I mean, yes. Okay. I get that. But so is the implication there that like if Donald Trump hadn't have won the election, that then we'd still do censorship? I don't know. It just and your point about the European countries is exactly right. It's like, oh, so you're just still kind of going with whatever is acceptable. Like, I don't know. I don't know how you're supposed to feel about people who were like, again, you know, it's something I've struggled with myself because it's like, you know, during the whole COVID thing in general, which is obviously very related to where it was the biggest censorship year was 2020. But because it was COVID and it was a presidential election year. But I remember, you know, like at the height of COVID and when there were examples of countries that were even, you know, a couple clicks more authoritarian than we were. And I'm not talking about like China. Obviously, I think the expectation is that China is going to be many clicks more authoritarian than we are in all things. But I'm talking about like Australia, where the crazy shit they were doing out there. And you'd sit there and we would talk about this often where we'd be like, hey, right now, if someone like at the height of the vaccine propaganda, if someone were to come out right now and say, hey, we're placing all unvaccinated Americans on house arrest. They're not allowed to leave their homes. Like what percentage of the people would support that? And it wasn't zero. You know what I mean? And you're like, it wasn't. I mean, I don't know. You know, obviously we don't know. Haven't conducted a scientific poll on this, but whatever percentage it was a lot. There was like at least like say 30% of the population at one point I think would have supported that. Obviously, I'm just kind of guesstimating the numbers. But then you'd go like, all right, forget house arrest. Camps. We're rounding them all up and throwing them in camps. I mean, I think the percentage would drop. Wouldn't drop to zero. You know what I mean? Like there was a percentage of people in this country who would basically have just supported any of it. And that is a very difficult thing to like deal with after the thing's over. Even when they come back and you're like, yeah, but like it's the guy yelling Jews in the attic. It's like, yeah, but I know who you are, you know? And at the same time, you're like, we have to move on somehow. I can't just like hate every fucking liberal person's guts in America. That's not who I want to be. But it is tough. It is so like, I'm not exactly sure what the right answer with any of this shit is, but I do just feel like a thing with him where it's like, dude, you did something really wrong. And I understand, listen, man, I understand being George Soros, right? Rounding up Jews for the Nazis. Do you blame, obviously Soros was a little kid when this happened, but like, do you blame his father for doing that? Yeah, kind of. And then also you kind of understand you're in an impossible situation and you're trying to survive yourself. But there is something, you did something horrible. And like, okay, you did it under duress. You know, I'll grant you that. But there's still something that you did that was really horrible. And there's no reckoning with that at all. It's just, we're doing this going forward. Here, let's keep playing.
The legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth.
No, you didn't.
But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far.
In other words, we couldn't brainwash you to trans your kids.
It really is just like, oh, this whole thing fucking backfired. There's been a big cultural like pendulum swing back. And now we're going to get on board with what's popular, just like we did when all this insane shit was popular.
Turns out if the internet has free speech, now that Musk guy ruined all our plans and bought X, we can't brainwash you all into thinking that everyone thinks it's normal to have your kid transgender. And so we can't do this thing where we bully you and call you crazy.
Well,
and so, gee shucks, it looks like we got to change what we were doing.
Well, there's... And I guess I get this from reading Mises, who really everybody should read. It's just such a beautiful thinker. But he would talk about like demonstrated preference. Where like if you buy a hat for $10, okay, then it's.
You saying I need a hat? What are you trying to say?
I'm saying I will give you the $10. Just buy the hat.
I'm a little self-conscious. Why are you?
No, you're good. You're good. Let's say you get sunglasses. We'll make it a more neutral. But so if you like, and there's like a voluntary, there's no guns being held to anyone's head here. Like you go into a store and you buy a pair of sunglasses for $20 or whatever. And then like we could deduce from that you value the sunglasses more than you value the $20. And we could deduce from that the person who owns the store values the $20 more than they value the sunglasses. Because otherwise you wouldn't make that trade, So like you could sit outside of the store and say, I really want those sunglasses. I really like them more than the $20 in my wallet. But if you actually go and buy it, then that's kind of more concrete conclusion. And this has always like been a very simple insight that I think colors a lot of my thinking. It's like I know you've heard me talk about this before, Rob, but like it's when liberals will argue that Social Security is incredibly popular. Social Security is one of the most popular programs that we have. Well, you would get rid of Social Security, but 82% of people say they like Social Security or whatever. And I'd always be like, yeah, but what does that even mean? What does it mean it's popular? You asked people, you had an opinion poll, and they said it's popular. It's like, okay, it's forced. You have to pay into Social Security at the threat of violence. So like, how about just make it voluntary? Then we'll find out real quick how popular this program is, right? So let's just say that. Okay, so if you could snap your fingers and tomorrow there's no more Social Security tax, you can choose to opt in or opt out. Then we'll really find out how popular it is, right? Because it's easy to say it's popular. It's like if I put a gun to your head and go, we're going over to the movie theater and we're watching this movie. And then I start trying to tell everybody, Rob really wants to see this movie. He really wants to go to this movie. You'd be like, yeah, but then why do you need the gun to the head, dude? Like, if he really wants to see this, how about put the gun down and then we'll find out what's up. Likewise, as I listen to Zuckerberg here, it's like, oh, the culture's changed. And now people don't view, they view these things as oppressive now, or they view these things as something in the state. You were silencing people. So don't tell me that anything changed. People were already against this shit. The only thing that changed is that now they're allowed to say it, right? Like the very fact that you had to censor people about this topic proves that everyone wasn't on board with this topic. It's like, yeah, look, dude, if there's a book written about the United States of America during this time, if the rise of wokeism, the response to COVID, when there's a great historian writes a book about this in 50 years, the only way to think of it is a mass psychosis. Is to go like the same way when we look back at like the commies or the Nazis or like any of these like other, and we go, holy shit, everyone just lost their fucking minds. The entire society lost their fucking minds. How the fuck do you get to this place where you're doing this shit? Well, it's like the same thing, dude. I mean, I'm not saying like the underlying crimes are exactly the same, but the fact that we were even like having a national conversation about whether you can change your gender or not, and then you had to be censored if you were on the side of like biology exists. Like that's a censorable like offense to just be like, I say, guys, this is like, there's chromosomes, there's genetics involved. You could just say you don't agree with that, but like it's still there whether you agree with it or not. This was something that had to be shut down. It's just pure madness. And you played a leading role in that madness. And now that the storm's over, or seems to be, you're like, hey, so that was nuts what happened back there, guys, right? Yeah, I think, these things started with good intentions, but they ended up being misused. It's like, I'm sorry, I just don't buy that. And I don't buy it at all. There's no way you're going to convince me that the censorship of 2017 through, Elon Musk buying Twitter, that was done out of like a noble intention to crack down on misinformation. It's absolute bullshit. And, if that were the case, you would have seen a correction much, much quicker. Like for example, say the correction wouldn't have come after, just to pick one example, right? And let's go with the Hunter Biden laptop, because that's the biggest one and the one that we just played the clip of. The correction wouldn't have come years later when Elon Musk bought Twitter, says he's going to make it a free speech platform. He becomes the coolest kid in town. Donald Trump ends up winning a dominant victory. And then we have this correction. The correction would have come as soon as we realized that was not Russian disinformation and that was really Hunter Biden's laptop, which was, by the way, on this show, we realized it that week. It was very easy to figure out. It was very, very easy to figure out that was, in fact, Hunter Biden's laptop. And the New York Times even admitted it. They took them another year and a half, but they admitted it ultimately. They're usually about a year and a half behind the show. That's the truth. Sorry, Sam Harris. That's just the way it happens to be. But like, you would think, okay, then the correction would come immediately, right? Like, I mean, if you were like, if you were giving your kid the wrong medicine and then they started getting sicker, well, when they start getting sicker, you'd stop giving them the medicine. And like, right? You wouldn't like do it for years and years until your kid finally grew up and was like, hey, this medicine's making me sick. You know what I mean? You've kept me sick my entire childhood. And then you go, there's been a cultural change ever since you grew up and realized I was poisoning you. And in this new environment, while I always cared about your health, in this new environment, I'm going to stop poisoning you. And that would be bullshit.
It's giving me major Cuomo vibes.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Exactly right. All right, let's keep playing.
That people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms.
You know what I hate the most about this?
We're also
is that this just speaks to taking things down. It doesn't speak to shadow banning at all. Which is a whole nother universe of to what extent is your content not being shown to people, not being favored in the algorithms. I'm even noticing this on Twitter. I don't know if you've been noticing this, but I find I spend very little time scrolling now. I spend more time using the Gronk and the other features. But I find that in my scroll, I get what used to be like chainmail type features, or like what the old like AOL top 10 articles would be, where it'd be like, look at this new and like it's a thread, and it seems to be all algorithm based engagement of, I'm sure, accounts that are now monetized that are like figured out the algorithm of how to get this shit in front of me. And it's stuff that I've never followed. I have no interest in whatsoever. Anyways, what the point I'm trying to make is there's a universe of just the algorithm and what it serves to people, which doesn't even speak to this more harsh thing of his nonsense about what gets pulled down, or, oh, now we're going to, so wait a second, you guys didn't have enough computing software to go after just the child offense people. And so you decided to take away from that computing software,
right?
To I don't know, almost sounds criminal.
Yeah, really.
So you're telling me you could have taken down more child pedophiles, but you guys just
chose not to? Instead, you chose to just silence your fellow Americans who were speaking up about whatever it might be. And even things that are like, because obviously also during COVID, and this is really at the heart of all of it, right? And it's kind of at the heart of the whole free speech question, is that, look, there were, because I don't want to like oversimplify things. There were people who got it wrong, who were, skeptics. There were people who had wild conspiracies. There was always dumb shit out there. I mean, I remember this is the thing about, there was like one video that people actually fell for. It was so obviously fake. But it was like, they were saying that the vaccine like made you magnetic or something like that. And so it was like, look, I just got the vaccine and now this spoon is sticking to me or something like that. And you were like, yo, dude, what? Like what? And I swear to God, I mean, I'm not saying this is the case, but I always kind of like in my mind, I'm like, I bet this is an op. You know what I mean? Like, I bet this is total like controlled opposition. Like, oh, let's fucking make the conspiracy theorists look as bad as they possibly can, you know? But so there was bullshit, but this is why you need freedom of, but then there would also be the truth out there that you could, and you have to figure out how to sift through that and have, you know, sources you can trust and good information versus bad. But there were also people who got it completely right on the internet and they got silenced with all the rest of them. And so, yeah, look, to your point, it's like, look, just stop interfering with what people fucking say. That's it. Just let it be organic. Let people fucking speak. And that's that. And look, as I said, you weren't on that episode, but as I said the other day when I was talking about a bunch of these accounts on Twitter who got like their blue check taken away and got demonetized, it's like, look, I'm not saying that any social media platform has to be 100% the wild, wild west. There could be things that you're not allowed to say on this platform. It's like, if you want to say, you can't say the N-word or you can't say, you know, whatever. Okay. Like, I don't really think too many people are going to go to war over that. But just make the rule clear and then apply it equally. You know what I mean? Like, just make the rule clear, make a reasonable rule, make it clear what the rules are, and then apply them across the board. And I think you're going to solve all of these problems. You know, I'm not saying I'm like far from a computer genius who understands like how to actually run Facebook, but it is obvious enough that it's just like, look, you kind of almost admitted it yourself. Rather than being what, you know, you started Facebook to give everybody a voice. What you ended up becoming was a tool of the regime to silence dissent. Okay, that is the opposite of giving everybody a voice. That is, there's no movie where you watch that you're not the bad guy for that. That's the bad guy. You know, if I was just telling you about a plot for a movie and I went, okay, well, there's this one guy who works for the regime to censor all of the critics of the regime. There's no movie where that guy's the good guy. That guy's the bad guy. There's no scenario. I couldn't even write a story around that where you were like, no. But I'm telling you, he's the good guy because you see, the people are just so bad and the regime is just so noble. And you're like, really? The regime's so noble. What are they in the business of? War. Mostly war. You know, war and some Ponzi schemes like this. Yeah, they're the good guys. Anyway, look, I mean, here, let's play. I think there's only a little bit left, so let's.
Also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed, so we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive. Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams
pause for a second.
out of California.
I almost got to just even process what that fucking horseshit was. I'm not even sure what he, like, so in other words, political content was all shadow banned if it was divisive, which sounds like conservative, but now he's realizing that there's so many people who are conservatives that actually want to see things that reflect their opinion. So in other words, if you were looking for information like ours, you probably weren't going to be finding it on Instagram or Facebook.
Right.
And so now they're going to allow more of it through as long as it's safe and positive, which means that there's still moderation.
Yeah. Elon Musk said a thing about that the other day too, about positive. Oh God, I hated that. And I'm a fan of Elon Musk, so I'm not trying to beat up on him. I don't have, you know, any, like, I have some contempt.
I think he's also just playing the game too.
Well, look, you might be right about that, but I'm just saying, like, I have contempt for Mark Zuckerberg and what he did. I don't have that for Elon. I see him much more as kind of like a heroic figure. But like even him saying the thing about like positivity versus negativity, like, what are we, children? Again, it's like I already got little kids, so I don't need to like I don't know. I don't need to like my tweets are supposed to be fluffy and like what the fuck? What if I'm pissed off? I'm not allowed to be pissed off. Isn't that part of like freedom also? I thought that was I thought we were doing a free speech platform here, right? It's like what am I exactly supposed like? I don't know, dude. I focus on all the things I'm pissed off about. My posts aren't going to be positive most of the time. Like if you got me, if one of you guys came upstairs later and I was just screaming at my 3-year-old about all the evil things in the world, like then there might be a moment where you're like, hey, Dave, lighten up a little bit, Like, stop being so negative. Let's be a little more positive here. He just wants to play blocks, Okay, fair enough. But when I come downstairs into our studio, it's time for me to rant and be angry. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to rant about all the shit that I think is wrong that I don't want it to be going on anymore. So like, I don't know. I just hate all of this. Who's exactly to say that people want, a positive experience? Like, what does that mean? People like to argue on social media. Arguing's good. Arguing's healthy. That's okay. It's okay to get into debates about things. And that's not, when you get into a debate, especially like a meaningful one, and this isn't, I don't just mean like a political debate or anything like that. It's like if you're in a relationship, any relationship, romantic, friendship, whatever, if you're in a relationship and there's like a real problem that needs to be solved, that needs to be hashed out, it's all but guaranteed someone's going to get offended, someone's going to get upset, you're going to have to go through that, but that's part of life. It's a healthy part of life. Like that's actually much better to go through that than to just avoid it. And so like, what does this mean? We're supposed to just like avoid negativity? Like with how goddamn corrupt this country is, I'm supposed to be positive about that? No, you will not take away my right to be angry on social media. I'll be doing more of it later today. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Monetary Metals, an amazing company that has revolutionized the precious metal space. I've been telling you guys about Monetary Metals for a long time. It's a great company run by great people, and they really have done something incredible. Many people, obviously for a long time, people have owned precious metals, typically as a hedge against inflation, also sometimes as an investment. But now, because of Monetary Metals, you can not just own gold and silver, but you can own gold and silver that yields interest in gold and silver. So you're actually growing your total amount of ounces over time. So truly, you're opting out of the dollar system when you go with Monetary Metals. Maybe we can't end the Fed tomorrow, but Monetary Metals has come up with a real alternative. Go check them out. Amazing company, an incredible opportunity. Monetary-metals.com. That's the website, or you could just click the link in the episode description, monetary-metals.com. All right, let's get back into the show. All right, let's play a little bit more of this and then we'll wrap it up.
And our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams. Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
Stay good out there. Ugh.
All right. Well, let me try to end this on a note of
Fucking
positivity.
dork trek.
Well, look, it is a positive sign that he's making this video. You know what I mean? And so there is a win in here. I'm not exactly accepting, like this from Zuckerberg himself, but to the extent that he's going to cut down on censoring people, that is a good thing. And look, man, it is. And don't get me wrong, because I know we still have like so many goddamn problems, and we didn't even get to talk about some of the other stuff we had planned. We'll save it for tomorrow's show, but there's a lot of problems that are still left in this country. There's the economic, the fiscal cliff and the monetary situation. There's the warfare state. There's a lot of big problems left in this country. But man, I will say, on a note of positivity, see, this could be on Facebook. After the last, let's say the last 8 years of dealing with so much of this insanity, it is nice to at least have the feeling of like, yeah, the culture has kind of shifted and is snapping back in a different direction. So at least thank God for that. All right, listen, we do got to wrap up. RobbieTheFire.com, run your mouth. Go check out Rob's other show. Yes. Good call, Natalie. I apologize to everyone. I had to move the Zoom meeting again. We will be doing it this Saturday at 2 p.m. For all the people who are subscribed at Part of the Problem at the top 2 tiers. You guys are a part of this too. We just bullshit and talk for an hour. It's a lot of fun. This Saturday at 2 p.m. we'll be doing another one of those. So come join us there if you can. Partoftheproblem.com, comicdavesmith.com. That's all. Have a good one. See you tomorrow. Peace.